What's up, viewers? Welcome back to another episode of E&C Question Reflection. Before we even get started, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, if you haven't done it already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell and hit all so that you are the first one to get the material when it drops, lives when they're announced, and also premieres. Also, if you like the video, hit the like right underneath this video. Also, you can comment to say hello or to say whatever you feel you need to say. Also, make sure that you share the video with your family and friends. So look, have you ever had someone tell you you got attitude? Have you ever been talking to somebody and they're just like, what's wrong with you? Do you got attitude? Or have you ever had somebody maybe treat you different than they could have treated you when you really don't feel like you did anything to be treated like that? So I have a lot of kids that tell me that. A lot of kids that will come up to me and they'll say, you know, Ms. Williams, I don't understand why this teacher treated me like this. Why did I go into the office? Or I'll have girls out in the community and they'll say, you know, I don't understand why, you know, this girl has an attitude with me, like I didn't do anything to her or whatever. So I'm going to start off by saying something that I decided I was going to start teaching about 2 years ago, is that I wanted to find out why people would think that someone was being disrespectful or rude, or if they had an attitude. And there's 5 primary things that would make somebody think you had an attitude with them when you didn't. And it's going to be your facial expressions, your body language, your tone of voice, the language that you're using, and your overall attitude. And when I say overall attitude, people are like, well, that's redundant. You know, no, an overall attitude is more like in your mind, in your mindset. And if in your mind you're thinking if you're thinking negatively, it's gonna shine out. It's gonna portray itself out. What is in you will come out. And it's really just overall. So I had one of my students come up to me, and she was in the office, obviously. And, you know, she said, I don't know what I did. So the first thing I told her, I was like, well, how did you look? So she started telling me the story. Instantly, I knew that while she was talking to this teacher, she had a bad facial expression. She had bad body language. Off rip. And she's like, well, I didn't say anything to her. You don't need to say anything. Your facial expression speaks measures. Your body language says a lot. Okay? You don't have to say anything. You don't have to have a bad tone of voice. You don't even have to have a perfect language or a bad language. Like, you don't have to say anything. You have to understand that when you're speaking to people, they're going to read your body language. Oh, I'm very good at it. Very good at it. My kids will talking to me, and I'll be coming down on them about something. And their body language tells me if they really care about what it is I'm talking about. And I'll tell them, straighten your face, straighten your body language. And they know exactly what it is. It's just like, they're just like, they have to straighten it up. Because I can see in their face, in their eyebrows, in the wrinkles of their face, in the drooping of their eyes, in their motions. I can tell you when anybody has a bad attitude. Because you can just see it. Like, you can just see it. So when I was going to go to school for psychology, because I wanted to be a child psychologist. Growing up in state custody, you know, you kind of want to be on the other side of where you're at. So I ended up not wanting to do that because there's a lot of diagnosis I don't necessarily believe in, ADHD being one of them, because I think that ADHD is just a cop-out or an excuse, just like I think that bipolar is misdiagnosed a lot, as well as depression. I have a life insurance brokerage. And people don't realize that when they're diagnosed with depression or like bipolar, especially at a really young age, it causes them a lot of problems with getting life insurance when they get older. Yep. Because the suicide rate is a lot higher. And so just the fact that it's misdiagnosed so much, I actually sat in front of a girl one day. Sat in front of her, and she was telling me, oh, I was diagnosed with, depression and this and that. And I go to question her, well, this and, that. And then she's like, she said something, and I was like, you don't have depression. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, you don't have depression. I'm watching you. I'm literally staring dead at you, because she swore she was depressed at that moment. But her attitude, the way she was talking about it, it tells me she's misdiagnosed. She was misdiagnosed. But anyways, that's come to find out, she was misdiagnosed. She wasn't depressed. She didn't have depression. She maybe had a lack of coping skills, or a lack of, because that's a lot of times that's what, as parents, we don't think to teach our kids those things. Coping skills. We don't think to teach our kids how to cope with things, or how to deal with things when things get rough or when they get bad. We don't think to teach our kids those small little things. Little things. We don't teach them that. We do, because, and the only reason that I know to teach coping skills is because when I was in group homes and when I was in foster care, there was a specific class called coping skills. So I knew it was pertinent to a child to understand and to know how to cope with things. And on top of that, I see a lot of it in the school system, that kids will come in and they don't know how to deal with things. They don't know how to handle situations. They don't know how to handle anger. They know that if they get mad, that there's going to be a consequence behind it. So they know that like I teach kids, your choice is your consequence, whether it be positive or negative. It's your choice, and you're going to make the decision. So they know that behind that, whatever they do, they know that there's going to be a consequence behind it. So if they get angry, there could be a very negative consequence behind that, whether it's the parents getting onto them or whatever. But it's before that they don't know what to do, and that's how to cope with it, how to deal with it. I'm angry. How do I not become angry? I know how to handle the after effects of being angry, but what do I do while I am angry? So it's not something that's taught. So when I teach these kids about these 5 things that'll make somebody think you're being disrespectful, the kids in the class, I've had counselors come to me and say, I don't know what you're teaching these kids. Keep doing it. The teachers can't stand it because they want their academics, But the counselors, the principals, they're just like, no, keep doing it. And I am going to keep doing it because they need to hear it. So this girl, when she comes up to me, she says, she was telling me that the teacher said something to her. And I said, okay, tell me what happened. So she's talking, and how she's talking at me, she's standing. A lot of times people will tell you when they're telling you the story, when they use their hands, especially, they'll tell you the story with their hands. You can, all day long. If a person's telling the truth, they can normally mimic that with their hands, because it's something that they're visualizing. It's something that they've seen. So they visualize it. So while she's telling me the story, she's mimicking what she said, how she said it. And so I said, she said, but and she didn't say anything wrong. And I said, how do you think your face looks? And she smiled because she knows that's something that I teach. And she was like, And I said, I said, how do you think your body language looks? I said, just stop what you're doing. Stop, freeze. And says, just look down and look. She had her hands in her pockets. She had a hoodie on. She had her hands in her pockets. She was, her shoulders was like, so, and I said, what you're doing right now tells me you didn't care about what that teacher had to say to you. It was something about getting a bag or a sports bag or something like that. But I said, what you're doing right now tells me you don't care. You didn't care what she was talking about. You did what she told you to do, but you didn't care. You didn't care what and she smiled. She said, Miss Williams, I don't know how you be knowing. I said, because I can tell. I said, and on top of that, didn't I tell you? There's 5 things that'll make somebody think you being disrespectful or rude or whatever. It's 5 of them. And your facial expressions and your body language is one of them. It's 2 of them. And you have to be aware of those. And it's really hard to be aware of your facial expressions because unless you're staring at a mirror, you don't know what you look like. I've had my husband tell me, you fix your face. When I was younger, because so when I got married to my husband, I was 22. That's young. That's really young. And especially to remain married that long. So when people tell me, when people be talking to me, I would look at them like, I don't care what you got to say. Or, I don't know who you think you are telling me what to do. Like, that was just my facial expressions. And so you have to control, you have to be able to be aware of your muscles in your face, because you can very well be talking to somebody and look in a whole different way. Like, I'll tell the kids, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And sometimes it's not how you say it, but what you said. And so you'll get people who'll be like, no, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. And then you'll have people that say, it's not about how you say it, it's what you say. Like, you'll see, and they'll go back and forth. But the thing is, it's either one. It's either one. That's why you have to be very cautious and aware of your facial expressions, your body language. You have to be aware of the things that you're saying. You have to be aware of the words, because, and like y'all know that watch my channel know that I'm very big on the English language, because it drives me nuts. Because what you say may offend somebody and you didn't know it, because they take things differently than you've said them. You may say, and I might say, and I don't care what you say. See, I might say that, and somebody might say, what you mean you don't care what I say? I don't care. And I'll tell them, I said, no, look, I don't care what you say, because what I'm saying is a fact. I can say that if I want to. But you have to be careful about how you're saying that, because I say that all the time. I'll tell you in a heartbeat. I don't care who said it and what they said and what they got going on, because I know I'm only say that when I'm speaking a fact. But you'll have people who'll be like, "Wait a minute, what you mean you don't care? What you mean you don't care? I care about how you feel, but I don't care that you don't believe what I said. Go look it up." That's just what it is. So you have to be very cautious about your facial expression and your body language, because just as quick as you got somebody's attention, you can lose it with your facial attitude. That face. Now, if we were standing in the mirror all day long and could watch our face, it took a video of me for me to change my attitude. No lies. It took a video of me. I wanted to know. Everybody kept telling me I had a nasty attitude and blah, blah, blah. And when I got older, I really wanted to be a better person. I wasn't going to change, my culture. I wasn't going to, because I've had that too. I'm not going to change my culture. I'm not going to change how I speak as far as my accent goes, because I've had that too. But I wanted to be a better person overall, like a decent person. So I actually set up a camera. I did. And I recorded myself. I got in an argument with my husband and I recorded myself. Because even though, and you might say, what you were trying to record him? So, nope. I wanted to see what I sounded like. I wanted to see what I looked like when I get mad. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see that junk. I wanted to see how bad it was for me to look the way I look or have the attitude that I have or whatever, you know, flaring your arms. I wanted to see it. I was probably about, I don't know, 25, 26. I wanted to see it. And I didn't like what I saw. Now I'm super cautious about it. I did not like what I saw. It didn't impress me. It didn't impress me. And it really caused me to just step back and be like, wow, it's not other people's perception of me or how they're seeing what I'm doing. It's actually me looking like I'm a psycho woman. That was bad. And so I made the change. So about 2 years ago, I started substituting about 3 years ago. But 2 years ago is when I decided that I have so much more to teach kids and young adults than academics and sitting in a classroom, you know, trying to teach some stuff that don't send me to high school, because the stuff they teach nowadays in high school, who's trying to go to NASA this year? I ain't in it. I ain't on to that. So, nope. So I normally did like the younger kids, but when I started teaching the stuff that I teach now, I decided to go to middle school, because middle schoolers is really where you really have to have an impact on kids. When they hit about 6th grade, they're 11 and 12 years old. You know, they're 11, 12, 10, 11, 12. They're about that age. And so from 6th grade into the 8th grade, you know, you're looking at an age range from about, you know, 11 to, you know, 16, depending on if the kid, you know, because we did have some 8th graders that were 16. So that's kind of your age range. And I started to teach that. You know, there's 5 things that'll make somebody think you're being disrespectful. So, you know, you guys are sitting here and I'll ask them, how many referrals do you guys have this year? How many of y'all have a referral? And then my next question is, and how many referrals did you get because of this right here? Because a lot of kids are getting referrals, but it's stuff they can control themselves. And I'll tell them, I said, you're accountable for your own actions. You're accountable for yourself. Whatever you did, you're accountable for it. If you chose to snap, you're accountable for it. If you chose to sit still and be quiet, you're accountable for it. Every movement that you make, you're accountable for. Anything that happens with you, you're accountable for it. If you chose to, instead of just letting the teacher do, I said, there's ways to handle that. Oh, there's ways to handle nasty teachers. Don't get it twisted. Teachers are nasty too. And I said, and there's ways to handle them even as a child. You let them get away with that little stuff. Go ahead, let them send you to the office. Let them, you just be quiet. They say what they want to say. You just sit in the class and you be quiet. But when that class is over, you go right to that principal, because that's their boss. And you hold them accountable for the stuff that they're doing to you. Because just because they're an adult doesn't mean they have the right to be disrespectful to you. See, that's a problem with people, is they ask for respect and don't give it in return. They ask people to respect them, but when they don't respect people, they wonder why that person has the attitude that they have towards them. See, you can't be like that. I do not care if you're an adult or a child. I do not care if you're an adult or if you are a child. You are due respect. And some teachers think because they're adults and they're tired of the dysfunction in these schools and these kids that come to the schools, they think that they can be disrespectful to these kids, and all of a sudden that's going to go over well. If you ask any child, any of the 800 kids that are in a school year, you ask them about me, they'll tell you Miss Williams don't play the radio, for one. And some people that don't understand what that it means, I don't have time to play games. That's basically what it means. Miss Williams don't play the radio, for one. And two, I have the same piece of paper, the same referral from the very first year I started substituting. I don't have to fill them out. And I'll have teachers, they'll say, we'll stand outside the classrooms and when the kids are coming in and they're like, hey, Miss Williams, you're my favorite teacher. I love you. And no, I'm so glad I have you today and blah, blah, blah. Because it ain't no party in my classroom whenever they come in there. So for them to say that, it's because I told them stories and I talked to them and we talk about stuff. So I had a teacher that came up to me and she was a hater. She hated. She told the male teacher that I was subbing for that I was not making them kids do work. So he popped in one day, and after class, he got a lecture from Miss Williams, because I don't care who you are. This is your classroom, but you're not here today. I gave him the work, and I did exactly what you said. But guess what? None of your kids went to the office either. He was known for kids constantly. He kicked kids out of class like crazy. Oh, he'd kick them out. He'd kick them out, and they go to the office, and not one of his kids went to the office that day. So he stopped. So the other lady that was across the hall came and asked me. She says, "What is it that you do different to where these kids don't do the stuff they do to us?" And I said, "You want me to be honest?" I said, "Because I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you ahead of time. Do you want me to be honest? Because if I'm honest, I don't want to hurt your feelings." And she kind of looked at me. She was taken aback by that comment, because I'm about to hurt your feelings, instantly. So she would say, she was like, "No, I want to know." I said, "I don't provoke kids. I don't provoke them." She said, "Well, what do you mean that you don't provoke them?" I don't provoke them. Meaning that I'm not going to sit in there. I'm not going to blast them in front of all their friends. I'll tell them, "Come here." And I'll tell them, "Let me tell you something." And I'll tell them, and I won't have no more problems. And I'm just as quiet. Nobody else knows. Stand in front of the middle of the classroom and be the boss, which I am. I don't around ladder. You better sit yourself down. I don't do that like some. I don't threaten kids in front of other threaten kids at all. I'm gonna hurt them. Your choice, your consequence. I don't have these problems with these kids that these other people have, because I don't do the things that y'all do. And I'll tell them right now, I ain't your friend. And they don't think I'm their friend. They think I'm a mentor. They think they look at me as somebody that they can go to. I have an open door policy. Nowadays, the school, you have to lock the door. But I tell any child, if you need somebody to talk to, I am always available. If you're going to get in trouble in a classroom, you can come sit in my classroom, because they have these timeouts where they'll send these kids to other teachers' rooms or something, so they're not disrupting. I have gotten so many phone calls from other teachers, and I'll answer the phone, and they'll say, "Hey, Miss Williams, I heard you was on campus today." "Yeah, my mom, yeah." And they said, "Well, I got a student that's acting out in the classroom." I said, "Yeah, you can send them. Bring them." And guess what? They don't act up no more. And so I had to teach them, "Well, what are you doing different?" I teach kids how to handle y'all. Because y'all are provoking these kids to do stuff. Y'all are provoking these kids to act a fool in your classroom, and you get mad about it because you don't know how to handle it. Sounds to me like they need coping skills. And they'll say, "Well, I went to school to teach kids academics. I didn't come to school. I didn't start this babysitting." Well, you should have been a tutor. That's what it is. You should have been a tutor. Now, I'm not saying for 1 second that these kids in this school aren't a hot mess. I'm not even saying that, because they are. And it starts at home. It starts how the parents are teaching their children how to act. Because you'll go home and there's some parents that say, that teacher can't talk to you any kind of way. So therefore, let that teacher say something to you, and you can just say this and this and this. And guess what? That's exactly what that student does. They go right to that school and they treat that teacher just like their mommy and daddy told them that they can. I hold both parties accountable. My child can call me anytime, and I'm going to head to that school. That teacher can call me anytime, and I'm going to head to that school. That's what it is. That's what it is. So when people are talking to people, there's a few things that'll make them think you're being disrespectful or rude or sarcastic. This right here is sarcasm all day long. I don't care. And guess what? Now they act in a certain way. So when we speaking to people will be, they can be in their feelings all they want to be. Excuse me. But it's all in your face. It's all in your face. That's the first part of it. Then it's all in your shoulders. I wrote a poem probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago. What is this, 2020? And it was called I Speak Your Body. My husband thought that was kind of weird kind of topic, but it was about him. And it was called I Speak Your Body. And it's about how I can read every wrinkle, every movement, every eye roll, and anything about my husband. He can be sitting there just as quiet as he is watching football, and his eyebrows are turned a certain way. I can tell something wrong. What's wrong? I can tell when he gets excited, he moves his leg super fast. You know, when he gets when something's just sparking his attention. I know everything about him. I know every single thing about him. And the crazy thing about it is when I was in school with going to school for psychology, we spent 6 months on body language. We spent 6 months talking about body language and facial expressions and which body language is negative and which way, if somebody's turned this way, what it means if they're turned that way, what it signifies if they're, all that kind of crazy stuff. 6 months on that subject, because that's just how important it is subconsciously to a person with their facial expressions and their body language. You can sit there in front of somebody and watch their face, and you can tell what kind of person it is. And you know what? For some reason, I have this weird gift to be able to tell a person what kind of person they are. And no, I'm not fixing to do that to nobody, because it's not the greatest thing in the world to tell somebody that they're not the greatest person in the world. I actually had a lady that I was going to go into business with a while back. And I messed around and told her that. And she challenged me, and she asked me, she said, well, tell me, what kind of person, what's my type? Oh, it was about a guy. Oh my gosh. It was about a guy. And you know me with relationships and, all that kind of stuff. So she was trying to, she was messing with guys that were, how she dressed. If you look at her, she looks one way. But how I look at her, I can tell that she's a different kind of way. So I told her what her type was, and her face was like, whoa. I was like, yeah, you're not going to mix well with these boys that you think are cute. It's not going to work with you, because she's attracted to one type of guy, but her inner person, the person that she actually fits, she's not attracted to them. But see, that doesn't work for her, and it will never work for her. She was in a relationship for decades to this person that she was attracted to, and it didn't work because that's not the one you will mingle well with. So yeah, that was awful. But body language is important, facial expressions, and that's why a person, you have to be aware of it. It's hard to be aware of your facial expressions because you have to actually look in the mirror to be able to know what you look like. But I have actually, like my kids, like I try to do it early on instead of having to wait till I was, they're like 20 to figure it out. So I will actually take a picture of them when they have an attitude. Show it to them. This is what you look like. And then they'll start to smile because you look ridiculous. You look ridiculous. You're mad and you don't even know that you're mad, but you think that your feelings are internal. So you don't think that you're portraying that or wearing it on your face or wearing it on your shoulders, or you don't think that you're wearing your emotions on your sleeve. You don't think you are, because you think that your anger or your resentment or whatever, you think it's internal. You think it only lives internally. It doesn't. So I'll take a picture of them and their face will be all screwed up and shoulders be slumped, and and I take a picture of them and I say, see, this is what you look like. Yep, that's what you look like. And it actually started to work. They started, because nobody wants to look like that. Oh, they start to try to control that stuff because nobody wants to look like that. It ain't cute. Nobody wants to look face all screwed up all the time because you mad about something. So you have to be aware of that. And the facial expressions and the body language are two things that are like nonverbal. Like, you can learn how to bridle your tongue or control what you say out of your mouth, your tone of voice and your language. You can learn how to control those because those are they're harder to, how am I going to put this? They're harder to learn, but they're almost easier to learn because you hear them. You know what it sounds like. You can record yourself saying that. You can see that. But it's a lot easier to try to learn to bridle your tongue than it is to be aware of your facial expressions, because you have to actually see your facial expressions to be able to know it even existed. I'll tell somebody in a heartbeat, if you don't know you're doing something wrong, you're going to keep doing it until somebody tells you, you're doing that wrong, right? That's not working for you, right? Which was one of the main reasons why we even started this channel in the first place, was because we have